Hey everyone, and welcome back to FSI DFS. I am McKinley 412, and today we're going to be looking at this 6-game main slate on Monday. No really weather concerns that we have to be paying attention to, but always make sure you're paying attention to it just because it can change throughout the day, and any COVID-related news that might be happening as well. So let's just kind of dive right into this slate. It's a tricky slate in that the best pitchers are in very tough matchups against good offenses, and your bad pitchers are against bad offenses, and vice versa. Your best bats that you want to be targeting and stacking have the toughest matchups on the slate. So it is going to be a tricky slate in that regard, but I still think that there are some plays that do creep up towards the top. Right up at the top, we have Jordan Montgomery in salary for $10,000. He got a serious price boost from where he was just his last time out. So 10K going up against Atlanta. Atlanta is on a 9-game winning streak. They are 16-3 in the month of August, 16-2 because they lost on the first day, and they're past 18. This team is hot. These bats are doing very well, and now they get a lefty in Montgomery. Atlanta hits left-handed pitching very well. So this 10K price tag is a bit extreme for Montgomery, and because of that, he's not really the top play, in my opinion, on this slate for pitching. But it is a limited slate. There's not much pitching to be paying attention to. But I do like the guy below him a little bit better, LYNCH. And once again, he is in a tough matchup going up against Toronto. Toronto, they do limit the strikeouts. They have that explosive offense that we know about. But still, LYNCH, easily, like in a vacuum, the best pitcher on the entire slate, hands down. He's just been incredible this season. 10-3, 2.26 ERA. Form hasn't been there lately, but still, I think on such a short slate, LYNCH is probably one of the top options, or if not the top option, regardless of the matchup that he's in. Greinke gets a far better matchup against Kansas City at a much cheaper discount. But you can kind of see he faced Kansas City his last time out. He went 6 innings, didn't get a single strikeout. I don't know what that's all about. I think it's more of a fluke than anything. I still think that when Greinke goes tonight, he'll still be able to generate some strikeouts, and he still will be able to hold down this Kansas City offense pretty easily. So 8.9K, I think he's a fine cash option in this mid-range, well, mid to upper range. But I think he's a fine cash option. He's probably going to be in line for the win. He's going to get some strikeouts. I would be blown away if he gets another 0 or 1 strikeout start here. So I do like Greinke from a cash perspective. MANOAH going up against the White Sox. MANOAH, we know what his ceiling can be, but his floor is also kind of in the single digits. And you kind of see it just in these 5 games here: 11 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts, but then also 2-4. He's in the negatives here, 30 plus in this one. Going to get up against the White Sox. The White Sox do struggle against right-handed pitching. It's kind of been the trend for them all season long. So I definitely have interest in MANOAH here, especially from more so in a GPP format, just because of his limited floor. However, his ceiling, his ceiling is far higher than Greinke's is, who's in a better matchup. So while Greinke's more of the cash play, MANOAH GPP, I think he's a fine play there. Kind of the same deal as MANOAH and Ynoa. They're kind of like the same pitcher in that they both have great strikeout potential and great strikeout upside. Their ceilings are through the roof, but their floors are also very low. So if they get to them, if the opposing bats get to them, it's not going to be worth the salary that you are paying for them. But regardless, he's going up against the Yankees. Really only like 2 or 3 lefties in that Yankees lineup. You got Gallo, Rizzo, and Odor. But still, Gallo and Rizzo against right-handed pitching, even though they're left-handed bats, they have some of the worst numbers on the entire Yankees team against right-handed pitching in terms of, batting average and contact and all that. So, I do think is in a nice spot here. And I think he makes for a fantastic GPP play. Hendricks, I don't really have too much interest in. He's kind of the first pitcher going down the list here that I'm kind of like, probably not going to be playing too much, if at all, here. Gonzalez is kind of the same deal. Oakland's probably one of the better stacks on the entire slate. Will Crow going up against Arizona. Crow's not going to be really striking anybody out. Yeah, he's got 4 or 5 strikeouts in all of his starts. He doesn't go deep into games. His pitch count gets up there, but that's because he walks quite a few guys. And he allows a lot of hits. So Arizona, not the most menacing offense, but still an offense that, if you can't strike out and you just allow a lot of hits, they'll get to you. Lynch and Senzatella. These are the other 2 guys I want to be talking about. Blackburn, I don't really have any interest in. But Lynch, it's Houston. They have the highest implied run total, but still, we have to pay attention. His last start out, 7 innings, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, and 23 DK points. I remember this game so vividly, just because I myself and the entire industry was extremely high on the Houston bats, and we all got let down. So maybe tonight's a night where, it's going to scare some people away. And then you want to be all over the Houston bats. You want to make sure you're paying attention to the ownership with that. But still, Lynch, in pretty decent form. He shut down Houston. He shut down the White Sox for 23 points and 27 against Detroit. 6.5K. It's not a salary that's going to absolutely destroy your lineup at all if he only gets you 12 points. But still, he's going up against an elite offense. So you do have to be a little weary of that. And then Senzatella against the Cubs. Any pitcher against the Cubs, you're going to be paying attention to. Just the Cubs are so bad right now. Just so bad. So Senzatella, I think he's fine. He's not going to be walking many guys, but he can get tossed around a little bit. But he's on in Coors Field. So Senzatella against the Cubs down there. So Montgomery, Lynn, Greinke, MANOAH, Lynch, and Senzatella. Those are kind of the pitchers I'm going to be putting into my play pool tonight. As for the bats, top bat, I mentioned it earlier. It's going to be Houston, highest implied run total, in a great matchup against Lynch. I do think their ownership could be a little lower just because of how they got shut down by Lynch last time out, and it was so recent. But still, I'm going to be all over them. Altuve, Correa's probably one of the better point per dollar plays on the slate, in my opinion. And then Diaz at 3.6K. Diaz and Correa, 2 top options for sure on the slate, and they don't take up any of the outfield spots, which is very odd because we always seem to be, wanting 24 out offense. I did it again. I went like a month. If you've been watching these videos all season long, I was making that mistake forever. I went like a month and I just happened again. Outfield. So man, Diaz, Correa. Now we always want like 20 different outfielders. And so this little stack here can free up that spot for you. So Houston, top stack of the day. Oakland, I think, is going to be another top option. Houston, Oakland, probably going to be your top 2 in terms of the bats here tonight. Pittsburgh, I think, is another great option. They're going up against Mejia. Mejia, he's just not, I don't even think he's in the player pool. I didn't see him when I did type him in. No, he's not even in the player pool. So, looking up his minor league stats briefly, he struggles even in the minors. So I think that he's going to have a real tough time in Pittsburgh going up against these bats. The bats I would be paying attention to on the Pittsburgh side of things, it would be Moran. It's going to be Reynolds, and the third guy, Brian Hayes at third base. So you got to make the decision. Do you want Diaz? Do you want Hayes? Who are you liking some more? So, let's just see where we are salary wise. Kind of as we're talking, we'll just kind of build along. You throw in Lynn or Montgomery, you're looking at 4.5K. Let's throw in the top 2, see where we get. 2.7. So it's going to be real tough to throw in those guys, but you can throw in one of those guys for sure, and then get into like a GPP sort of pitcher, and you're at 3.2. More than capable of rounding out the lineup with that. And even if you bump all the way down, to one of these cheaper guys, Sensatella against Chicago, anybody against Chicago. You're looking at 4K remaining with an already solid start to your lineup. So yeah, salary is not going to be really too much of an issue here on this slate. But Houston, Oakland, Pittsburgh, the Yankees I mentioned, and Chicago White Sox, I think need to be talked about just because Manoah and Untitled, I mentioned their upside is crazy high, but they also do have limited floors. So I think these two pitchers are going to garner a lot of ownership just because of what they can do. So if you want to go with the Yankees or the White Sox bats, you can kind of like leverage yourself a little bit in that regard. And that pretty much covers the rest of the slate. I mean, Arizona is a nice GPP play going up against Crow. Going through Atlanta against Montgomery. They're just so pricey. Let's look at their at 6'1", 5'9", 5'3", 5'2". They're crazy expensive, but I could also lead to reduced ownership because they're playing the quote top pitcher on the slate. So I think Atlanta could make for a great leverage spot as well. Kind of being a little contrarian there. Cubs. The Cubs. They're just in the free fall. And then Seattle's always cheap. So that kind of covers the slate for today. There's not really any salary issue that you do have to be paying attention to. I mentioned Diaz. He's super cheap at like 3.6K. Dickerson at 2.8K for Toronto. Lefty against righty. I know he's going up against LYNN, but still, heart of the order and the Toronto lineup at less than 3K, you got to be paying attention to, regardless of who he is going up against. So that kind of covers things today. As always, good luck in your contests, and we will see you in the next video.